Okay, this is Unit 8. Now, the unit name is measurement of 2D figures. That's just a really fancy way of saying area. So everything in this unit should be pretty straightforward. You're finding area of shapes. Obviously, you can assume why that would be important in life. Anything from painting to putting in a new floor in your house. Area is going to be one of the most important things you learn in this entire year. One thing about this unit is there's quite a bit of review for triangles. We'll be doing Pythagorean theorem, special right triangles, trig, so lots of your old triangle stuff, I believe, from Unit 4 and 5. So if you'd like to go back and review that, that would be a good start for this unit. Okay. First, let's talk about the process. The process for working any of the area problems in this entire unit. First of all, Pin 1. In this section, we are just focusing on triangles and parallelograms. Okay. But what I'm talking about here is going to be true for every single problem in this entire unit. First thing you have to do on your problem is know what shape you're working with. Okay, because that's going to determine which formula you write down. After you identify a shape, you always want to write out the formula. Okay. Reason why this is important, okay, is a lot of kids that try to skip this step because they think they don't need it. They think they can just plug in without actually writing the formula down. When they get to a problem that doesn't ask for area, let's say they give you a problem that gives you the area and asks for height. You've seen those problems before where they're basically wanting you to do the problem backwards. If you'd miss this step, a lot of you are going to get confused because you're not going to know where to put the numbers into the formula unless you have the formula written down. Okay, so if you find yourself getting stumbled on those questions, ask yourself, did I write out the formula? Alright, after you write out the formula, you're going to read the question. Again, the most important part of math is reading. Okay. And you're going to read the question, you're going to say, what is the information that I need? Okay, do I have my height? Do I have my base? Do I have my area? If there's any missing information, if you have missing information, if there's not enough information to plug into the formula, then sometimes you're going to have to go find it. Some of the methods we're going to use in this case is we'll use Pythagorean theorem to find some of the information we need. We'll use special right triangles. And we'll also use the trig formulas. Okay. After you know everything you need, you're going to plug in and either evaluate the expression or you're going to solve it if you have to do algebra and actually solve. You're not always going to have to do algebra. Sometimes they're going to give you the information and ask for the area. But anytime they give the area and ask for anything else, you're going to have to do some algebra. So, I know this unit seems kind of simple because I'm sure you've done area before, but again, this is high school level. Okay, and some of you are pre-AP students, not third period, but most of my students are pre-AP, so a lot of the questions I'm going to give you are going to be a little bit more challenging than what you saw in the freshman or junior high levels. So don't overestimate this unit. Okay, you know I like to challenge you guys. You know I like to push your limits because I know how good you can be. So this is the formula for triangles. Most of you know this formula before. You've seen it. Okay. You know what these letters mean too, base and height. Okay? Base is not always the bottom. Okay. Okay. And another part is the height. Height is not always up and down. Okay. And this is where the difficultness comes into. The problems you probably saw in junior high and the problems you probably saw at the freshman level probably had the base on the bottom and the height vertical. But that's not always the case. So how do you know which one's the base and the height if it's not on bottom and it's not vertical? Here's the key. How do you know which one's which? Okay. The base is always perpendicular to the height. Okay. And this is going to be really important for some of your questions. Okay. So let me give you an example. Okay. You'll see this a lot in the next question. The first example I'm going to give you is going to have the base on the bottom and the height vertical. Okay. Well, it does do this a little bit because you have to know which one's the height. I will have some students every year that I give this problem, I will have some students tell me that this is 1/2, 8 for the base, and 8 for the height. This is wrong. Okay? Because this line is not perpendicular to the base. Okay? You have to draw in a perpendicular line for your height. Okay. Now we're going to take this triangle and yes, I'm using my daughter's markers. Y'all can make fun of me later. Okay. And I have to find my height. Okay. Notice that this is a right triangle. Okay. This part is 4 because it's half of the base. And I'm trying to find h, and this part is 8. Okay. So I'm just taking this pink triangle and I'm separating it. We can use Pythagorean theorem. So this is h squared plus 4 squared equals 8 squared. And I'll let y'all solve that however you want to, either by hand or on the calculator. You should get 6.93. Okay. Now plug into your formula. A really big mistake I see kids make is putting 4 in for the b here. Remember, this is your base. Okay. And we found h to be 6.93. And then you can just type that in the calculator. Alright, so again, in junior high, the height was probably given to you, or it was a right triangle where the legs were perpendicular already. But at this level, in the high school level, you're going to have to be doing some stuff to find the information you need. None of your standardized tests, whether it's the PSAT, the ASVAB, the Acupuncture, whatever you go on to take, even if you don't plan on going to college, you'll probably end up taking some sort of test sometime to get into some kind of program. And most of those tests are going to ask you to do multi-step questions. So I'm trying to prepare you for that. Alright, let's talk parallelogram. Area formula for that is going to look familiar. Doesn't that look like the same formula you learned for rectangles? back when you were in junior high? Fact is that formula is actually for any parallelogram. It does not have to be a rectangle. It's just base times height. Works for any parallelogram. If I have time, I can show you on the Inspire calculators why that's true, because I can make a parallelogram and then adjust it and show you why it will always make base times height. Oops, that's an 8. Alright, again, I said the whole height being perpendicular to the base is going to be important in this question. Another interesting thing about height is there's not just one height in a picture. Okay, base can basically be anything. Base can be any edge of a shape, and every single base is going to have its own corresponding height. Okay, so in a parallelogram you have two different bases and two different heights. Now this question is asking you to find H. Okay, your first instinct would be to look at these right triangles and try to figure it out. Some of you might move the 5.8 over here and try to tell me that this is 2. The problem is you don't know that this is a midpoint. Okay, so that's not going to work. But keep in mind, this entire section is about area. Let's see if we can do something with this formula. Okay. Now, the corresponding base for the 3.5 height, because this is perpendicular to this, if this is 5.8, I can move it over and make this 5.8, which means these are corresponding base and height. Okay, we also have a base and a height here. Okay, but let's start with these. If I have my base and my height, can I find my area? Sure. Okay. Now, let's use this same formula for the blue base and height. Okay. Again, let's write out our formula. Now, what do we know? We know the area. We know the base. And we're trying to find the height. So, plug in. Area is 20.3. The base is 4. And we're trying to find height. Anytime you plug into a formula, if you only have one variable, you can always solve for that variable. So notice you can use this formula even if they're not asking for area. Anytime you have a problem where you have base and height and area going on, you can always try to find it. I didn't have the answer written down here from my notes from last year, and I do not have a I do have a calculator on me. By 4. Leave it to a math teacher to have a calculator just sitting out handy. Okay, the height is 5.075. Okay, so that's one way you might be asked to do a parallelogram problem. Again, a lot of these questions are going to be creative. You're not always going to be asked to find area, but you'll use these formulas in every single problem. But the questions may be deceiving because they may not ask you to find area right away. I think that's it. I think we'll be good with just those two examples.